All right, so you guys are aware that we're talking about natural selection, of course. Just wanted to make this video real quickly to help you guys out with your projects if you're having a little difficulty. So let's start with what is natural selection, right? Natural selection is when a species adapts to its environment and is able to live longer and produce more or reproduce more because of its adaptations, right? So the example they have in the book is the turtle with the long neck on the island with fruit that is high, the turtle with the medium-sized neck on the island with the fruit that is medium high and low, and then the turtle on the island with the short neck who all the vegetation is very low, right? Because on the island with the low vegetation, the turtles would not adapt and grow longer necks. On the island with tall vegetation, over time, the turtles that were born with long necks would survive longer because they're able to reach that high fruit, right? And outcompete against the turtles with shorter necks. So in essence, natural selection is that ability to reproduce and survive longer, reproduce more and survive longer because of its adaptations. Now, why did we discuss mutations first, right? So mutations, so this is adaptations to a species over time that increase its ability to reproduce and survive longer. Okay? So if a species survives longer, guess what? It gets to reproduce more, right? So they kind of go hand in hand. Adaptations to a species over time that increase its ability to reproduce and survive longer. So how does a species adapt? How does it grow a longer neck? Does it think, man, I really want that apple at the top of that tree, so I'm just going to stretch my neck and stretch it, and then it'll get longer, right? No, that's not going to happen. That poor creature is never going to reach that apple. However, if it does have mutations that occur to its DNA and its reproductive DNA, then its offspring might have a longer neck. And if the offspring does have a longer neck, guess what? That offspring's going to reach that apple. And if that offspring can reach that apple, then it can survive longer, right? Because then it can reach all those apples at the top of the tree. And then it will have more food, and it will outcompete those other creatures with the shorter necks. Okay? So what I'm looking for is for you to come up with a couple of species that you can demonstrate some of those adaptations. There's three types, right? There's behavioral, adaptations, and behavioral adaptations are adaptations to behavior. So that would be something like a lion's roar, right? To scare its competitors and to be able to broadcast its voice over a large distance, right? So a lion's roar, or let's say how about an opossum, right? An opossum learns to play dead when there's a predator near, right? So lion's roar, opossum, playing dead, and then how about a rabbit sitting still in the heat so it doesn't lose more heat? So rabbit staying still in the heat. Those are behavioral adaptations, right? They adapted to survive in their environment because they needed a different behavior in order to survive. I think the best one in that situation would be the rabbit, because it's in a hot environment. Would it need that behavior in a cold environment? No. So it's adapted to its environment, right? We have the behavioral, then we have functional. This one's a little bit difficult to understand because it happens within adaptation. And I'm seeing some of you guys writing adoptions, adaptions. It's adaptations. You gotta get the word right, right? So a functional adaptation is something that occurs within the body, right? So it's more of a chemical process. So one student gave a good example of its muscles were able to grow at a faster rate. This creature's muscles were able to grow at a faster rate because they needed to be stronger at a younger age, right? Or let's say, you know, when you see a baby horse born, it's able to walk within a couple of hours, if not days, whereas like a human baby can't walk for the first year, right? Those are functional adaptations. So horse muscles develop fast, develop quickly. Okay. And then how about the last one, behavioral, functional, and physical adaptations, right? Or structural adaptations, as they're called. So a structural adaptation is merely something that is part of their body, right? So if you see a crab with a giant claw, it has that giant claw so it can catch fish and it can feed more, right? Or if you have an elephant with large ears, it can hear longer distances or cool its blood down, as in the case with the rabbit as well, right? It has those large ears that it puts up in the air so any kind of breeze can cool its blood and it can cool itself down. So a structural adaptation is an adaptation to the body. The body changes in a way that is advantageous. That is advantageous. All right? Okay? So those are our three adaptations: structural adaptations, functional, and behavioral. And adaptation is something that helps the species or the organism and its offspring survive over time. The variation is different because a variation is what is caused by mutation. Variation just means it's different from its parents, right? So a variation can occur and it could be harmful, right? So let's say a tiger is born and it happens to be all black, right? And it's in the jungle and it isn't able to hide from its prey and it's not able to hunt. So that would be a bad advantage for a tiger. So the tiger would not be able to survive longer and reproduce, right? Because it's not getting any food from not being able to hunt, etc. So a variation just means it's different from its parent through mutation, which is why we learned about mutation first, right? We learn about mutation, and then we learn that mutation causes variation. Now, the variations that give advantages, that help the species, will become an adaptation. And is an adaptation the same as natural selection? I would say in a way it is, because the adaptations are what allow natural selection to occur. There is a slight difference between the two, but in general, one is because of the other, right? Natural selection occurs because there are adaptations that happen. And then natural selection is the reason for evolution as well. And we'll get into that in next week's lesson. So hopefully that was helpful. If you have any other questions, I will be glad to answer them for you. Do your reading. Look at the flip cards that I gave you guys, the little note cards with the quiz sheet. I think it's on Quizlet that I sent them to you. Do your reading out of the book. I think that's the most helpful. Watch a video or two, and you should nail natural selection pretty well. If you're struggling, please at least answer those questions at the top of the instructions document, and that way you can turn something into me showing that you understand what natural selection is, how it relates to mutations, how adaptations are a part of natural selection, how variation is what cause adaptations to happen. And so far I've seen some great projects, so good work out there. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Miss y'all, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.